Hi, this is Black Krishna or BK from manfulwars.com, where I'm promoting polite patriotism to help nice ladies and gents look, talk, and feel great and teach kids to, and to beat online censorship to help us locally discuss and share great online info offline as better people making better places to live. So check out manfulwars.com for more on that. But this video, which is related, is called Taxi Drivers and Trans Pronouns Destroying Polite Ladies and Gents Worth Respecting, right? And this is from Breitbart.com, a great website that does a lot of stuff on politics and pop culture. They do a lot of stuff out of the U.S., the home of freedom and prosperity worldwide in terms of being a role model. And so everyone in the world can kind of copy the best American examples to kind of save their own freedom and prosperity where they live. And the late great Andrew Breitbart said politics is downstream from culture, meaning that basically the culture changes us and then the politics reflect that. So they'll say, well, the culture says this, the culture says this. Now the law says you can't say that and complain about it, right? And that's a real significant issue. And so when it comes to Breitbart.com, I recommend them, and I'll put a link to this article below. But this is the article. It says here, New York cabbies drafted for transgender pronoun wars. New York cabbies drafted for transgender pronoun wars, from Breitbart.com. And it is by Neil Monroe from January 15th, 2020. What I'll do, and Neil in the article and the story makes the point, but I'll add my comments as well. I'll go through this article because I know this is a concern, right? One of the wildest things that the sort of whoever they are, however you want to define they, but one of the wildest things that they are doing is they are getting us to be unable to talk about the things we most care about, like ourselves and how we get along with other people and our kids, right? That's what we're having trouble talking about, right? That's why it's so important, because if we get that right, caring about ourselves, caring about other people, having them care about us, and then of course caring about our kids, then we'll be empowered and we'll be able to be informed and we'll be able to communicate well, especially offline, about fun or serious stuff. So that's why it's being attacked so much. That's why there's political correctness causing social constipation, trouble talking, and then gender neutralization, trouble acting like ladies and gents who can act nice enough to talk, who can be straight up cool guys, feminine, graceful girls, teaching kids to appreciate each other, right? And that causes so many problems. So that's why it's so under attack, and that's why it's so promoted, and that's why it's so important we fight back, as opposed to merely busying ourselves with the latest trivia about this or that. Excuse me, no allegory, stray hairs. And that's why it's so important that we don't just busy ourselves with, oh my goodness, what's happening in Iran? What about the protests? What about the killing of the general? Oh my goodness, what's up with North Korea? Oh my good, it's whoa. All that stuff might be important, but what's more important than making sure you can show and get respect and communicate well where you live? Right? And that's why this is so important, right? And if we can't talk about that, we can just talk about other stuff online, and then we can't act nice enough to talk offline, then we're easier to control or kill off by whoever they are. You can find out more information about who they are at manforwars.com or at your preferred anti-establishment independent news organizations. It says here from Neil Monroe at Breitbart.com. New York officials are pressuring the city's 200,000 cabbies and hired drivers to publicly question the sex of their customers. Quote, ask the passenger what their pronoun is, says an email sent by the Office of Inclusion at the city's Taxi and Limousine Commission, the email said. So they basically are, they're saying to all these taxi drivers, ask people what their preferred pronoun is. Now, to most people, that's crazy to ask them what their preferred pronoun is. Most people, you carry yourself like a man or a woman, you get treated like it. You get a sir, you get a ma'am. You act like a bitch as a man or a bitch as a woman, then you don't get that kind of sir or ma'am treatment, right? And so basically, now they're making it more awkward to say, well, what is your preferred pronoun? And then it's not about how you act that gets you respect. It's about forcing it, by forcing people to use these pronouns. Because normally, most people straight, great at it, and then others LGBTQ, fitting into being nice ladies and gents, good for kids and each other too, right? And no brainwashing, propagandizing kids. But this is an attack on that. And again, that's why this is so important. This is not about picking on poor trans people. That guy wears a dress and he wants to be treated like he's Marilyn Monroe and the hottest girl in the world. It's like, no, well, a lot of times they're not taking it seriously. They're just bitchy bullies that are bitchy bullying their way into getting what they want. And that's what happens when you're a gender confused mess who can't show and get respect, and you still want power, but you feel disempowered because of the choices you've made and the brainwashing you're suffering from. And then your power is not in showing and getting respect and being empowered by other people. Your power is how much power you have over people, and not to bring them up, but to take them down to your level. So that's why this is going on. And the Office of Inclusion, all these offices of inclusion and diversity, all these groups, like a lot of other groups out there, they make their money off finding problems, even where problems don't exist. You've got anti-racist groups. If they realize, wait a minute, not many races here. You know, people they get along with each other. They like athletes and actors and musicians and so on of different backgrounds. They don't make a big stink out of it. So what do? We still want to make our money, right? So we've got to look for problems where it not exist. We've got to say, the white walk symbol. When it comes to walk and don't walk on a street, the white lights that flash up walk, that's racist, right? Now we should have a multicolored inclusive walk symbol, or maybe we should have a brown one or a black one, but you can't just have the white lights indicating that it's now safe for a human to cross the street, and where there's an orange hand that comes up and says caution, you have to stay there because traffic is going the other way and you have to wait for the walk symbol. They'll make up something like that white walk symbol is an example of 400 years of slavery and institutionalized racism and blah, 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 right? So when you have places like the Office of Inclusion, the Office of Diversity, all these groups in different bureaucracies, government bureaucracies, in the education system, also affecting corporations where they hire this sort of thing, they have to look for problems, right? And so they do, and they make things up, and they feel really bad about it, or they find some weak person who feels really bad about it, and then they have to change everything for that person who feels really bad about it, as opposed to having some nice, polite, confident ladies and gents explaining to them why they don't have to feel bad and why everyone doesn't have to go along with them feeling bad when you can make them feel good instead, right? So back to this email. The email said, this is to the 200,000 New York cab drivers. Using someone's preferred pronoun is a simple way to show respect. Ask the passenger what their pronoun is. Do not assume someone's pronoun because of their appearance or name on the app. Introduce yourself and share your pronouns. If you make a mistake using a pronoun, be sure to apologize, right? Now, this is the problem with this type of ideology and the type of mental illness associated with it, right? There's lots of issues when it comes to being straight, but there's also more issues when it comes to being gay, and there's even more issues when it comes to being trans. And there's lots of studies that prove that. There's lots of studies that prove this doesn't make them happy. Many people don't like it. You can check out sexchangeregret.com with the work of Walt Heyer, who does a great job telling his story and helping other people struggling with these issues, or acpeds.org, the American College of Pediatricians, a group that formed up specifically to counter the trans kids issue, right? Because if you make a mistake using a pronoun, be sure to apologize, right? I mean, some guy calls me, hey, girl, how's it going? I think he's an idiot. I don't suddenly start crying, right? Because I'm a man, right? And I said, you're a moron. I'm a dude, right? But if you're a man trying to be a chick, you're not that good at it. First of all, if you're really good at it, this should happen anyway, right? You'll have people go, oh, they're a nice lady or gentleman. They're just whatever, right? You're a foppish gay guy. You're still a guy, right? You decide, to put on girly stuff and you're a girl. This is to make sure that people bad at it can get away with murder, including murdering polite ladies and gents who communicate well, as I said. And And they're victims, right? It's not like they're in charge, right? There's no way that 0.03% of people, the trans community or whatever, could be elevated to the status of godhood in a culture. So many other minority groups are struggling to get more recognition and more respect and more whatever, help, whatever, if they're struggling. So how did these people get elevated, right? They got elevated because the evil they, wants to use them to attack everyone else, as opposed to sensible minority groups or individuals or unique individuals or whatever, who say, look, I want to be different, right? Most people get married and have kids. I want to be single. Most people like doing this. I want to dress in black like a punk rocker. Most people, fine. You still want to be polite and fit in with everyone else. That way you can get respect for being a nice person, and then people can either leave you alone or appreciate and understand that you want to be different and you want to do something different, right? This is the opposite of respect. This is lying, bitchy, cry bullying, where they take a bunch of poor, gender confused people and they say, you know, if we change everybody else to fit you, then you'll be happy. But that's not true, right? If they can find some way to fit in with everybody else, they'll be happy. Not do the same. You can still do your own thing. Freedom first, right? Although you promote normal, so most people have a chance to be happy. And then people doing their own thing can fit in with everybody else. This is the opposite. This is screwing everybody else on behalf of them when they won't be happy and everybody else won't be happy. That's why it's being done. So back to this article. It says here, the, quote, inclusive language tips are intended to raise the social status of people who claim to have switched sexes. But they also reduce the status of taxi cab drivers, excuse me, by pressuring them to submit to the transgender ideology's jarring claim that men are entitled to be treated as women once they declare themselves to be a woman, right? Or to be women. And this is true. Like the taxi drivers are now drafted into this war, just like everybody else is being drafted into it. So this is not just a question of, oh, so what? People are going to do what they want. So what? It's none of your business. So what? Leave them alone. So what? That's whatever. It's like, no, the agenda is to get all of us on side with this issue. And so all of us will be drafted into supporting the transgender ideology, whether we believe it or not, right? Whether it suits us or not, right? Whereas I'm like, look, I don't care. I definitely want the truth to be out there so people aren't confused. Where if men, you know, as the great Dr. Joseph Nicolosi says, Joseph Nicolosi, check out josephnicolosi.com. If gay doesn't work for you, then you don't have to be gay, right? And you can go to reparative therapy, not shock therapy, not beat you with a rubber stick and a phone book, therapy, but reparative therapy, where they say, okay, so you're a gay guy, you've been gay for a while, and you're not happy. It doesn't work for you. You're doing everything right according to Gayville, right? But no matter how many drugs and dicks you take, you're not happy, right? So fine, come to me, and if you are happy, then go be happy. You don't need reparative therapy, right? But Dr. Joseph, the late great Dr. Joseph Nicolosi and his team have helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men escape a lifestyle that didn't work for them, right? And in fairness to gay guys, if you're a Twinkie gay guy and you want to do gay guy stuff, I wouldn't say, God damn it, man, you shouldn't be gay. You know what? You got to get a wife, and you got to get a farm, and you got to have like 5, 6, 7 kids, and you got to just pray to the Bible every morning, and you got to pray to God and work hard and raise your kids. It's like, it might not work for them, right? And so this is a question of what makes people happy, right? And the trans ideology, 40% attempted suicide rates, 20 times more than the normal population, even in cultures where they celebrate it and treat you like a god. It's not necessarily good for you. This is according to trans people's own studies, and there's much more. See sexchangeregret.com, as I said, for example. But this is an attack on everybody, and that's the problem. And so now these cab drivers now have to submit to this ideology, as opposed to saying, oh, cab driver from foreign country, no problem. Somebody wants to be nice, I'm nice to them. Someone not nice, well, still have to drive them, but don't treat them especially well. Now you can have some lying, bitchy bully saying, treat me like a girl. Say it. Hey, what do you think of my boobs? Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of my vagina? It looks like a balls and penis, doesn't it? And how much does he have to submit to when it comes to this agenda? right? And how much the rest of us have to submit to when it comes to this agenda, right? And this is screwing up our normal ways of being and normal ways of treating people, because you used to have to earn respect to be called sir or ma'am, not just show up and be like a normal dude like me and say, actually, I'm a lady. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Ma'am, can I carry your bags put your bags in the trunk? Oh, yes, ma'am. And you get some poor cab driver from wherever freaking out because he's got to call a dude like me a lady, right? And as opposed to like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Snap out of it, right? Um, so, it says here the rules also prod millions of passengers to accept the ideology's claim that people can change their sex by merely changing their quote gender identity regardless of their body or demeanor, right? So it doesn't even matter. There's no standards. People aren't taking it seriously and they just want to get away with it, right? Because they're all messed up and they want to get away with some form of being empowered. And this seems to be the only way you can feel empowered today is by changing your gender, being an ugly mess, and force people to put up with you and say it's cool, right? Which is not, it's like the emperor has no clothes, right? The emperor in the old story, the emperor has no clothes. The emperor was like, oh, this tailor made you the finest clothes. You can't see them because they're so perfect. You can't see them, and they're so light you won't feel them. And the emperor walked around naked, and until a little boy in the crowd said, hey, look, the emperor has no clothes, right? And everyone kind of broke the spell and went, yeah, the emperor has no clothes, in the famous old tale, right? But in this case, the emperor can walk around with no clothes and you're not allowed to say anything. Just like this man can walk around not even trying to be good at being a woman, and you got to treat him like he's great at being a woman, or a woman man, vice versa, right? But especially the man woman thing, because it kills men, and then when men die, they kill each other and they kill women and children, and that makes us easier to control when it comes to people being a source of respect for each other and everyone else, and making it easy to get along and communicate well and do something about where you live, including fight for your freedom and future. And that's why men are attacked like this so bad, and that's why I got manforwars.com, for example. It says here, back to the article, the instructions also suggest that drivers can ignore the obvious evidence of each passenger's male or female sex and instead impose the transgender pronouns on customers who do not claim to be transgender. And it says here, quote, ask the passenger what their pronoun is. If you do not want to ask, you can use the gender neutral pronoun such as they or z, right? So you have to ask the passenger what their pronoun is, right? But if you do not want to ask, ostensibly because they might be offended, use the gender neutral pronoun such as they or z. What does this do? This takes away from respect, right? From, oh, good afternoon, sir. Where are you going? Or good afternoon, ma'am. And guy relaxes. Oh, okay, cool. This guy respects me. Nothing to worry about. We're cool. Oh, this man respects me. That's nice. He's calling me ma'am, or lady, or whatever, or honey if it's extra friendly, right? But instead they say ask what their pronoun is, which makes things a little weird for most people. So most people are screwed. And if you don't want to ask, you can use they or z. And that makes things a little weird because instead of using language that indicates that most people respect each other, you have to use language that's confusing and that doesn't reflect the fact you respect each other. It only reflects the fact that you're scared of whatever the hell gender they might be or might consider themselves, and so you've got to default to some emasculating they or z pronoun. That's the new thing. That's official in the state of New York with their Office of Inclusion for their 200,000 taxi drivers. And again, this affects everybody. This is an example of the type of ideology and thinking screwing up everybody. Neil Monroe from Breitbart.com makes the point here. For at least 100 years, taxi drivers have had the ability, the public trust, and the legal freedom to make their own judgments about the sex, pronouns, and titles of their passengers, regardless of the driver's wealth, education, or social status. This personal authority has had its own checks and balances, including the prospect of tips for good judgment, tact, and politeness. So if you treated them well, they'd tip you well, or they'd review you well, they wouldn't complain about you. So it was all part of it. And by the way, The taxi drivers represent all of us because for at least 100 years or thousands of years, the rest of us have also had the right to make our own judgments about how people were treating us and to treat them accordingly, right? If it's a sweet little old lady, you say, "Oh, ma'am, let me help you with that." If it's a bunch of hot girls going to a club, "Hey, honey, where you girls going?" And you're going to put somebody in a great mood when you get there. "Oh, you're so funny. Take us to this club, please." Blah blah blah. And you could respect each other as ladies and gentlemen of different ages and different races and different sizes and different whatevers, and you could be appropriate, right? Now you don't have that on the table. And so, that's how the gender equal neutral thing is. That's why I'm trying to preserve gender responsible, because I still have it on the table, right? Guys know that we can be cool, and I'll treat them like a man, and they'll feel like a man if they want to be cool. And if not, then I got to keep my self respect, not lose mine, and take anybody else's, right? Girls know they can get a compliment from a man who still knows how to give a compliment because he can call her lady or honey or ma'am, or he could joke around in some friendly guy trying to charm a girl kind of way. I have that on the table. They screw around, I don't give it to them. They're nice, I do, right? But you take that away, and there aren't ways for people to respect each other, right? And that's why this is being done, as I say in the title of this video. So the personal authority that the cab drivers had and everybody else had its own checks and balances, including tips for good judgment, good character, and tact and politeness, right? You were nice to each other, boom, right? You're not, then the cab driver and everybody else should still be able to keep their self-respect and not be nice to you being rude to them, right? But in this paradigm, that's what you have to do, right? And I feel bad for people, right? Especially, people, straight people, of course, most people straight, but even LGBTQ people are also screwed too. Because if you get rid of polite ladies and gents, then they can't be polite ladies and gents too, right? So they're screwed too, right? Now, it says here, the interaction was made easy in the United States partly because cabbies and other Americans were under no pressure to use foreign titles other than sir for men and ma'am for women, right? That's all you had to do. A baseline level of respect, a baseline level of sir or ma'am means you're not going to worry about me. I'm indicating that to you because I respect you and I hope I don't have to worry about you, right? That's what they're getting rid of. And that's why they're making it hard for people to act nice enough to talk. And even when they talk, to talk nice enough to act nice, right? Because they get rid of all that crap, right? Especially when people interact offline, right? That's where you get the gender equal, gender neutral, sheepish, sideways, everyone's rude, sketchy, no one's sure what to do or say near each other, and that makes us easier to control, right? Especially when it becomes fashionable, or especially when people in more of a position of authority or power over you insist on everyone else doing that. Your boss does that, messes with you, you're frustrated, you take your frustrations out on some other people or strangers or whatever. That's the problem. That's what's happening. Now, back to this article. It says, but the new, quote, tips, which are not regulations or laws, apply to drivers regardless of their prior status. Many of the drivers are religiously observant or have had training in science. 71% of cabbies and drivers are immigrants, including many who have their civic values shaped by Islam or Hinduism. Newsday posted the tips. There's a hyperlink to a Newsday article about this. It says here, the tips are not new policy. They are just suggestions, not binding rules, according to Rebecca Harshbarger, a spokeswoman for the regulator, the Taxi and Limousine Commission, which licenses the industry. But then again, politics is downstream from culture, right? So the culture is changing people, and as soon as they get one complaint from some lying bitchy bully, people are going to freak out and pass a law, turning these suggestions into laws, and then saying things like, that miserable mess of a man or a woman or whatever is so messed up by this that you need to pay a $10,000 fine. You need to spend 6 months or a year in jail just because you hurt their feelings, right? Meanwhile, you physically hurt them. You could get a minor misdemeanor assault charge, and you might have to pay a $1,000 fine and spend a week in jail. But because it's all about their feelings, especially when it's for a protected group, it could get a lot worse. And I'm not making it up. There's other stories about this, stories out of Europe about this, stories of people getting offended by what people tweet or post on social media, and getting police visits, right? So even though it says here they're not new policy, they're just suggestions, they could easily turn to policy, and that policy could crack down on people. And this is a worldwide phenomena. This is globalists, super rich evil people, central bankers, print money from nothing, want to weaken countries and people and control them, bring them into a global governance structure under the UN and other international groups, and nationalists in different countries, not racists, not whatever, although you want to preserve your people and your culture, right, and your borders and your what you do to make you happy and make you a country, right? So, but not racists, but from Sweden to Somalia, everywhere in the world, nationalists should try and protect their countries against globalism and attacks like this by globalists, because that's specifically what they're doing. That's why it's happening around the world, right? Nobody wanted this. Nobody was agitating, for this, domestically, right? It was most people straight, great at it. Others LGBTQ, if they were allowed to do what they do in especially free Western countries, if they were good at it, they fit in fine. If they were bad at it, they effed off, just like anybody else. Just like the poor, sketchy, crazy homeless person, running around. I got a blade. I'll cut you. Don't come near me. I don't care about the cops. Ooga booga booga. You didn't suddenly have to treat them well, right? You just avoided them, right? There wasn't suddenly a law saying, no, even if they're doing that, even if they're acting weird and making you uncomfortable because they're a special group, you've got to treat them like they're a perfect gentleman or a perfect lady. No. But because of this trans pronoun ideology stuff, now you do, right? Because before, you're bad at it, people didn't respect you. They didn't have to, right? But now, everybody can be bad at it. Everybody has to force everyone to respect each other. If you can even do that, when it's just sort of artificial like this, as a result of these sort of ideas and policies and laws being pushed. So back to this Newsday talking about the tips. In 2018, Mayor Bill de Blasio signed legislation giving city residents 3 gender options on their birth certificates, including X for neither male nor female. Great. As soon as a baby's born, doesn't get a chance to be male or female, doesn't get a chance to be good at it, right? Then you wonder why they grow up all screwed up, right? If you take your baby and you sign X on their birth certificate, right? And I'm sure there's some people paid off to do this, celebrated by the media to do this. It's not all responsible parents, right? Now, formerly responsible parents are influenced like this. What do you think, honey? Well, dear, I think that we should just put X on our baby's birth certificate. We don't know what their gender is. Give them a chance. Give kids a chance to be good at being boys and girls. Nice, straight, happy boys and girls, comfortable in their own skin, comfortable with each other. And then later on, when they become, adults, young adults, or whatever, if that's not working for them, then they can switch. And they can be like, well, I'm gay, but I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm just a more foppish guy who likes other guys. And we don't make a big deal out of it in public, right? No big deal, right? Or I'll be trans, or whatever, right? But give them a chance. Now they're not even giving kids a chance, because when you put X on a birth certificate and you're determined not to raise your boy like a boy or your girl like a girl, unless they switch genders, then you have to take it super seriously. But if they're just a normal boy or girl, that'll cause them to switch, right? That'll cause them to resent you. That'll deprive you of a chance to make them happy and give them a chance to grow up being like strong, stable people. And that's why this is being done. It says here in 2016, back to the Newsday referencing this, the New York City Commission on Human Rights issued legal guidance to employers, landlords, businesses, and other professionals to use preferred pronouns, and that, quote, refusal to use a transgender employee's preferred name, pronoun, or title may constitute unlawful gender-based harassment. So you used to have to earn this stuff by respecting people who respected you, to get the sir, to get the ma'am, to get the extra special treatment based on your gender, right? Otherwise, hey, how's it going? Good. That's blah, blah, right? No respect. You say, hey, good morning, sir. Oh, you respect me. Good morning. Here, I go to a coffee shop. Oh, good morning, honey. She goes, oh, good morning. How are you? Right? Oh, you think I'm a girl. You treat me like a girl. You seem like a man who knows how to do that. Great. I'll be a friendly girl, right? You used to have to earn that with your body language, with your character, with how you treated people, not just force people to say that to you when you haven't earned that, right? And it's got this inclusive language tips from the TLC's Office of Inclusion posted here. TLC driver. And so it says, Dear TLC driver, as you may know, if you are on duty, you must pick up passengers regardless of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, sexual identity, disability, or destination. Here are some tips that will make your trip with a passenger more inclusive. And it says in bullet points, use someone's preferred pronoun. Using someone's preferred pronoun is a simple way to show respect. Ask the passenger what their pronoun is. Do not assume someone's pronoun because of their appearance or name on the app. If you do not want to ask, you could ask how they prefer to be called or use the gender neutral pronouns such as they or z. Introduce yourself and share your pronouns. Some examples of pronouns are he, him, she, her, they, them, z, her, zer. If you make a mistake using a pronoun, be sure to apologize. Do not use words such as it or he or she. This is offensive to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ plus community. Sincerely, TLC's Office of Inclusion. So he or she is now offensive to them. Why? Because you're no good at it? That's why. Because you don't want normal people to be good at it? Why? Why are they banning the use of the words mother and father in England in the stray hair there, in the NHS, National Health Service? Because somebody is offended? Who is offended by other people doing what makes them happy, right? And even if you are, should you be able to stop them, right? There were lots of people offended by gay people doing their thing, but they weren't allowed to stop them. Can gay people be offended by straight people doing their thing and be able to stop them? Or trans people, right? No, this is insane, right? This is an attack on everybody. And I don't think most gay people or trans people, of sound mind are down with this. Now, if you empower certain groups and they feel that's the way to get power and they're confused and they're not sure and they're not, getting much power from how they act and showing and getting respect anyway, some of them could gravitate towards this. Just like a lot of black people don't want to be racist towards white people. But if it's on TV and if it's in the media and if it's this and if they say this is how you're supposed to feel and every white person's inherently racist and 400 years of slavery and blah 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 blah, and it's and you have to bully your way around them and you have to act like an obnoxious anti-white racist jerk, and if white people don't like it, then that proves they're racist. That can happen, right? They can convince people to be obnoxious jerks, based on this type of thinking. But typically, you don't mess with normal people and what makes them happy if you want to be happy yourself and be allowed to do what you do. But that's what this does, right? It says here, do not use words such as it or he or she. Now, it I can see being offensive, but if you're gender equal and gender neutral, it might do. And then he or she from the TLC's Office of Inclusion. And then Breitbart, which does a great job covering this. It says here, Breitbart News has extensively covered the aggressive campaigns to redefine sex-related pronouns and nouns, such as man and woman, so progressive elites can rewrite American civic rules as they seek to expand, divide and rule, diversify, or divide and conquer diversity. Divide and rule or divide and conquer diversity. They're not making it easier to say, well, we're all different, but we're all polite, and so we can mind our business or we can respect each other and learn a bit about our differences, right? And respect them, right? Because that's what happens. You make sure you're cool, you're polite, there's a normal way of doing that, and after that, you mind your business or you learn more about each other, and then you can appreciate each other based on the baseline normal level of respect. You're not forced to learn about people and do things that violate respect to be respectful, right? And I knew this growing up in Scarborough, growing up in Toronto, right? Very different people, all mostly polite Canadians, or F off, buddy, next time, eh? Or next person, make sure I'm not a mess for by keeping my self-respect, right? And it didn't matter what your background was, right? We had to figure it out or we had to fight. And so we tried to figure it out based on being polite Canadians, a uniform standard of being polite. Then we learned more about each other, the people who were nice to each other and who got along with each other, and it wasn't a problem. Now this is making it hard to do that. So everyone's paranoid around each other because of the social constipation, political correctness, and gender neutralization, taking away our ability to act like nice ladies and gents. And there's a bunch of hyperlinks for previous articles that Breitbart has. If you want to check those out, I'll put a link to this article below. And then it says here, in general, the established press has submitted to this political campaign to change the meaning of fundamental language terms. But the vast majority of Americans want the federal and state governments to protect the evolved language and the laws that help ordinary people manage their two-sex society of equal, complementary, and very different men and women, girls and boys, right? Um, and there's a tweet here by Neil Monroe. Feminist speaker stares down jeering swarm of pro-transgender progressives. Quote, on what basis do women's rights exist if the word woman is meaningless, right? So you used to treat men want to feel useful, women want to feel special. You don't walk into a woman's bathroom. You don't bump into a woman. You don't shake a woman's hand like you do a man's hand. You know, you're a little bit more delicate with them and they're a little bit more friendly with you as opposed to big old guys, banging into each other. You know, all that used to be special, right? But now a guy can put on a dress and say, I'm just as good as any other woman. It's like, no, you're not, right? When normal guys are cool, they know who's good at being a man and who's not, and they can try and make them good at being a man. And with girls, same thing. Who's good at being a girl? Who's not good at being a girl? You can make her being good at a girl, or if she's just a miserable bitch, then you don't do much with her and you talk behind her back, right? That's girls, right? But if you erase what the meaning of a woman is, then women's rights and women's special treatment, which they deserve, if they're nice and just generally, right? If you want to have men who are cool at being men and good for other men and women and children, and you want women good for other women and men and children, then you need to do that. But these pro-transgender progressives, they're attacking everything, right? And they're not going to benefit from this. It's like the people that help the communists are the first ones who get shot by the communist leadership, the sort of useful idiots. These people are useful idiots because the world they create is not a world where they can get respect and be nice to people, nice to them. It's a world where they have to keep attacking people as lying, bitchy cry bullies. And that is the problem with this type of thinking. And then it gets into here transgender facts. In general, the transgender ideology says a person's legal and civic recognition as a man or a woman is determined by their, quote, gender identity, not by their biology, right? So it depends on whatever you say you are, right? And you don't even have to take it seriously for you to force people to take you seriously, right? And that screws up everyone because now men don't take being a gentleman seriously, ladies don't take being a lady seriously, and then we can't be nice to each other and communicate well and make each other happy and teach kids to the way we used to be able to, right? And so it's not just a handful of people. This type of thinking screws up everybody. And I've got lots of 100% HD video proof at manforwars.com on my channels, the ones that haven't been deleted yet, my BitChute channel, for example, YouTube channel hanging on for dear life, heavily suppressed. You can see lots of proof of that, including some recent stuff I did. Now, back to this article. It says the ideology, the trans ideology, also insists that men and women are more or less interchangeable, and yet objects to the public's view of the two sexes as simultaneously different, complementary, and equal. Yeah, equal, right? But not equal in the sense of we're all the same. Equal in terms of being equal under the law, equal in terms of being equally deserving of respect, but responsible, not gender equal, gender neutral. We're all messed up girls messing with each other with no one around to help us out. And you have to respect that because it's my feelings and how dare you, as opposed to gender responsible, which is men make sure they're cool so other men can be cool with them and women can feel safe and special and kids can learn how to do this. And men make sure there's no messed up girls. Instead of making sure everyone acts like one, men make sure no one does, including other men and women and children. And that's the problem with this attack on gender and identity and respect on everybody, right? It says here the transgender advocates want to impose their ideology on Americans by establishing, quote, transgender rights, unquote, laws. These rights would require the Department of Justice to penalize individuals and groups who insist that biology determines each person's male or female status and also shapes people's likely political, civic, and personal priorities. Again, as Breitbart said, late great Andrew Breitbart, founder of this website, politics is downstream from culture. First, the culture, beats us around the head and makes things normal. And then we go, oh, so what, right? And then the politics comes in and the laws come in, and they say you're not allowed to. Just like in Canada, there's a man who's not allowed to save his 13-year-old daughter from transitioning to being a boy because that would be gendered violence. He's not allowed to talk to her about it, not allowed to talk to the press about it, and he's being accused of gendered violence if he does, just like in Ontario in Canada, right? One of the most cucked up countries in the world, probably second most after Sweden. With all due respect, everyone in the world, in Canada and around the world, be warned and stop this from happening in Canada and around the world wherever you live, because otherwise it'll hit you too. But you can look at the worst examples, right? You look at that guy, you look at the kid who sticks a knife in a light socket, gets shocked, flies across the room, almost dies. Other little kids see that and go, you know what? I'm not going to stick a fork or a knife in a light socket because I might get electrocuted to death. Or you look at the one kid, touches the hot stove, burns his hand, screaming. Then other kid goes, okay, not going to touch the hot stove, burn my hand, scream in pain. Got it. Same thing with Sweden, same thing with Canada, same thing with this, right? But in Canada, they've got a law called Bill C-89 that says if your child wants to be a different gender and you as a parent resist, then the state can take your child away from you, because that would be doing violence to your child as opposed to you being a responsible parent, talking to your child about all the crazy things they want to do and discouraging them from things they shouldn't do and encouraging them to do things they should do, as opposed to saying, yeah, my 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12-year-old can decide to go on hormones and change their gender and be infertile and not, have other health risks, not be comfortable in their own skin, just never be able to have children again, and retard their brain and body development. It's like, hey, little 6-year-old Johnny or Jenny, you know that if you take these hormones that retard your growth and retard your growing into a man or a woman, they'll retard your ability to develop your body and your brain normally, because that's what those hormones are there for. I don't care. I want to do it. I hate you because you're bad at being a man, Dad. So I want to switch to being a girl. Or you're bad at being a woman, Mom. So I want to switch to being a boy, right? That's also what happens, right? Where kids don't have good role models. So they're like, screw this. Pops ain't happy being a man. He ain't any good at it. Don't get no respect for it. Don't show or get any. I want to be a chick. Why not, right? And girls go, screw this, right? And with no men and women around who can respect each other and relax and empower each other and be good role models, this also affects kids. So yeah, they say they want the Department of Justice laws to enforce this against everybody on behalf of a small group of people who aren't happy. They're not happy. They're messing with other people, right? Happy people don't mess with other people. Happy people mind their business, or they empower other people. They don't just go out of their way to mess with other happy people, right? But misery loves company, and they're taking a bunch of miserable lying bitches and using them to mess with everyone else until we all turn to miserable lying bitches messing with other people, right? And that's the problem. Now, back to this article. It says, polls show that the transgender ideology is deeply unpopular, especially among women and parents. And that's just because men have been cucked up and taught not to say anything. But men hate it too. They just can't express it, right? Or they have to go, whatever, this is the way to get power. Lying, bitchy bully, who's going to stop me? Big, strong man, what are you going to do? What's other men going to do? What are women, kids going to do, right? It's like, gross, right? But it's deeply unpopular, according to polls, especially among women and parents. In 2017, former President Barack Obama told National Public Radio, NPR, that his promotion of the transgender ideology made it easier for Donald Trump to win the presidency, right? So there's hyperlinks to that there. But when most people see they're under attack, and politicians are just like, I want to do something for the middle class, but there's not much I can do. You know how it is. That's just the way things are. Try and be happy anyway. And Trump goes, bullshit, no political correctness, screw this, drain the swamp, blah, blah, blah. Even though he's a crazy billionaire who's got some skeletons in his own closet and isn't a perfect guy by any means, they're like, you're attacking all of us. We don't just need a nice guy in office who's just like us. We need a mafia boss. We need a New York mafia boss to defend us, right? And because most people are under attack, right? When you're all under attack, you need some help fighting back, right? So back to this article. Multiple polls show that most Americans reasonably wish to help and comfort people who think they are a member of the opposite sex. But those polls also show that Americans reject the transgender ideology's claim that people's legal sex is determined by their feeling of, quote, gender identity, not by biology. A UK survey shows a similar mix of sympathy for people who say they are transgender alongside the lopsided opposition to the ideology. And it's true, most people are nice, they want to help. You're struggling with gender dysphoria. Well, you could, like at Sex Change Regret, like Walt Heyer did, you could get some therapy, you could learn about some issues. Often this happens, people have some issues with their gender because they were neglected or abused by their parents, because they bonded with the wrong parent, weak fathers, shrill, bitchy mothers, and little boys like, well, I want to be a strong boy, but my dad isn't a strong man. So who's the strong one? Mom? Okay, I'll bond with the mom, right? Typically, little boys, as they mature, according to science, from what I've seen, um, little boys from the age of birth to about 3 or 4, they identify with the mother. Why? Because the mom's always around. Mom was breastfeeding. Mom's always caring for them. Moms do it so that they, around 3 or 4, they start they identify with the mom. But around 4, 5, or 6, they start identifying more with the dad. Why? Because they're a boy, they can run around, mommy gets tired chasing them, they start to realize their own strength, they bump into things, they want to smash bumper cars together, and they want to identify with the father figure, right? But a lot of times they don't get to do that if there's no dad or strong male role models in the house, and that's why they suffer, and that's why many go gay, or many become trans, right? Because of that. Now, if it doesn't make you happy and you end up messing yourself up and you end up messing other people up or messing with them, and you can't show and get any respect, then you need therapy to make sure you can escape from this sort of hell on earth you're living in, which is you and whatever you do near anybody else too, right? And so there's some sympathy there, right? But that has to be on the table. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make it illegal for you to do that. So if you're miserable being gay or trans or whatever, they're saying you can't get any help to not be, because that would offend other people who are. Whereas any sensible person who is, just like these multiple polls show, most people want to help these people. These people don't even hate gays or transgender people. They just hope they can be nice people who mind their business, do their thing, don't mess with other people, don't mess with kids. Who cares, right? And they hope that if they are suffering from some confusion and it's not working for them, that they can get some help. But what do these people, at least the people elevated by the media, not normal, sensible, polite, gay or trans or whatever people, but the people elevated by the media do? No, they attack what makes everyone else happy. Why? Because they are useful idiots as part of a bigger plan. So it's not all about them, right? You could take retarded people, mentally ill people, confused people, people that don't have any, disempowered people, and you could put them in charge. And you could say, okay, so now you're in charge, but you're disempowered. What do you want to do? I want to get back at everyone who made me feel bad because I was a mess, right? That's what they're doing with a lot of these people, is they're foot soldiers for the globalists attacking everyone in the world, everyone normal in the world or everyone straight in the world with this type of thinking. So back to this argument, back to this article. The transgender movement is diverse, so its different factions have competing goals and priorities. It includes sexual liberationists, progressives, feminists who wish to blur distinctions between the two sexes, and there's hyperlinks for all this, so you can check it out yourself, and people who glamorize the differences between the two sexes. It includes high-profile children, people who are trying to live as members of the opposite sex, troubled teenage girls trying to flee womanhood, and people trying to detransition back to their original sex, right? Because they're like, I'm sad, this will make me happy. And then they go through all the expensive operations and hormones and health risks and whatever, and then they're still the same unhappy person, right? They say the same thing about some people where you're the same person you are, whether you're poor or rich. If you're a normally happy person, you'll be happy poor and happy rich. If you're a normally sad person, you'll be sad poor and sad rich. It's the same thing when it comes to gender and if you switch, right? If you can be a happy person before you switch, do the best you can, be open to learning the truth about all the risks and complications, and give yourself an option to be good at being straight, and that doesn't work for you, then go ahead, switch, right? But if you can't do all that, if you're not strong enough to do all that, then you'll just be a weak person who transitions, and you were a mess before and you'll be a mess after, and someone will have made a lot of money off selling you drugs and doing surgeries, and somebody else above them will have gained a lot of power by advancing this agenda to attack everyone else, right? It says here, it also includes men who demand sex from lesbians, masculine autogynephiles who say they are entitled to women's rights, and alpha males who insist they are the natural leaders of women. It's true, there's men out there, and they still have their penis and their testicles, but they call themselves women, and they claim they're lesbians, and they want to have sex with lesbians, and they complain on lesbian message boards and chat groups that these goddamn lesbians don't want to date them, right? It's like me, a regular straight guy. I put on a wig, and then I say to lesbians, hey, lesbians, I want to have sex with you two girls, right? I'm a lesbian too. And the lesbians are like, no, we're actually biologically female lesbians. We've got all girly parts, and we want to do girly things with each other, or maybe butchy girly things, or whatever our lesbian thing is, right? And I'm like, no, god damn it, you refuse to date me, you transphobe. It's like, dude, you're not even taking being a girl seriously, and now you want to call yourself a lesbian and complain lesbians don't want to have sex with you? That's how screwed up it gets. And again, this thinking doesn't just affect the most extreme examples we make fun of, it affects everybody. See manfwars.com for more on how it screws everybody up, right? Because everybody, you're like, well, that man is, oh my God, what happened to that guy? He's such a mess. Look what he's trying to do. Okay, yeah, he's an extreme example of a mess. You want to see the rest? The rest are not as extreme, but they're still a mess. That's the problem. Or another problem. And it says here, the movement also includes parents who are eager to support their children's transgender claims, wealthy donors, politicians, political professionals, revenue-seeking drug companies, surgeons, and medical service providers. Yeah, there's a lot of money and power and status in this now. So all of that contributes to its popularization. Transgender advocates also claim that 2 million Americans say they are transgender to a greater or lesser extent, but very few people who describe themselves as transgender undergo cosmetic surgery of the genitals. It says here, only about 4,118 Americans surgically altered their bodies in hospitals from 2000 to 2014 to appear like members of the opposite sex, according to a pro-transgender medical study. So there you go. They claim there's millions of transgender people, but from 2000 to 2014, only 4,000 or so, 4,118 Americans actually went for the surgery. So how serious are they, right? They're not serious, right? And that's why they can't be taken serious. That's why they've got to be bitchy bullies, and that type of thinking makes the rest of us like that when it becomes normal. Where, oh, not serious being a man, put up with me, lying bitchy bully. Oh, girls, okay, fine, not serious being a woman, lying bitchy bully. Kid, not serious being a kid, lying bitchy bully. You know, no more cool guys, nice girls, cute kids. That's what happens. And it says here, a Pentagon report commissioned by former Defense Secretary James Mattis said that, quote, rates for genital surgery are exceedingly low. 2% of transgender men and 10% of transgender women, are actually going for the surgery to change their genitals, to actually take it seriously and deserve respect for taking it seriously and doing a good job at it, as opposed to just be some mess bullying people. And it says here, yet the gender ideology is rapidly gaining power, aided by huge donations from wealthy individuals and medical companies. And I recommend you check out the hyperlinks in this article at the link below so you can see for yourself and get a fuller example of who's actually behind this. Big money is behind this. They say, we just want to help these people. But no, they just want to weaken everybody else and get more power over them as part of this larger agenda. Finally, it says here, the progressive push to bend Americans' attitudes and their male and female civic society around the idea of, quote, gender identity has already attacked and cracked many popular social rules. Those rules help Americans manage cooperation and competition among and between complementary, different, and equal men and women, right? And so, yeah, these rules are going. That's why people are so messed up. This is the biggest problem, why people are messed up. They can't be nice to each other. And that's the biggest problem. You can't be nice to people. They can't be nice to you. You're a mess. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem with this agenda. Finally, there's a tweet from Neil Monroe here. Another tweet. It says transgender groups want women to be redefined as womaksin with an X instead of an A, all the better to blur the inescapable biological and physiological distinctions between the two binary, different, complementary, and equal sexes. And there's an article there that he tweeted out that you could also find as well for your interest. And that's how the article ends. So I feel bad for these New York cabbies drafted for transgender pronoun wars. Article by Neil Monroe from January 15th, 2020. From Breitbart.com, but as I said clearly, and as you can see with 100% HD proof on video at manforwars.com, this is screwing up everybody. Even the people pushing this are going to be miserable when most people are a miserable mess because of them pushing this. So that's an issue. And so there you have it. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share, get in touch with questions, answers, ways to work together, interview requests, or financial support, all very much appreciated. You could also use any clips of this or repost. Let me know if you'd like. I find that stuff kind of cool when it comes to this video. And otherwise, Black Krishna or BK from manforwars.com. I do hope this helps, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.